This is our 1999 Rokon Ranger two-wheel drive mini bike. They've been made since the 50s and still are being built today.
So because this bike is two-wheel drive, it doesn't need a lot of horsepower to do what it was meant to do. This thing has a measly Honda GX160 on it that probably puts out 5 horsepower. It tempts me to know what would it be like with double or even triple the horsepower. That's what we're going to find out today. Will this bike be better with more power or just be a death trap? And also, will the transmission handle it? Because we don't know these things. One thing it does need is some good brakes.
When we was shopping for an engine for this Rokon build, we had a couple of things on our checklist. One of those things is the customer really wanted electric start. Another thing is we wanted to make as much torque as possible. Horsepower is an awesome number at the end of the day, but torque is what's going to make this bike perform at its best. So we knew we wanted a stroker engine, and there's only a few on the market. The Tilson 225, the Max Performance Predator 224cc, and EC Carburetor's 223cc Wildcat. Now when we compare these three engines, the 223cc is one of the only engines on the market that has a stroker crank and also has electric start option. EC sells this with the electric start and charging coils, just charging coils, or just the pull start version. So there's a lot of different options to help the end user pick the right engine. So when we compare the 223cc versus the GX160 that's on the bike, there's no comparison. There's 63cc more of engine, which is 40% increase going just from the GX160 to this 223. So that's already going to be a massive gain in performance. So when we compare the 223 Wildcat versus the 224 Predator, we see there's a lot of benefits to going with the Wildcat engine. One of those things are the head. The 223 has a hemispheric head, where the 224 has a non-hemi head. When we look at the combustion chambers, we have 20cc versus 22cc's. This is going to give us a much higher compression ratio in the future. We also have 5mm valve stems versus the larger 5.5mm valve stems, and we have split automotive style keepers on the 223. This is a lot less weight in the valve train and a better keeper to keep those valve springs on, so it's just a much more reliable valve train setup. Then if we look at the valve size, we have a 2mm bigger intake valve and a 1mm bigger exhaust, so that's an upgrade right out of the box. We also have a flat top piston factory installed in the 223. This is a part we normally buy and upgrade in stuff like the 224, but it already comes in this engine. When you pair that with EC's rod, you can get it at 0 deck, which is going to give you a 10.1 compression ratio. And of course, the biggest thing about the 223 is it already has electric start, so that's going to be a big jump with what we're trying to do with this bike. We are going to do a quick build on this 223cc today. We're going to be installing a PZ22 carburetor, which is a 22mm round slide carb with EC's curved intake manifold. We're going to use their 8281 billet rod, which again moves the piston to 0 deck for approximately 10.5 to 1 compression ratio. We're going to go with their TTS 647 camshaft with their 26-pound valve springs. We're also going to be installing a DTV shredder flywheel and charging system. This is a really rare performance part, but it allows us to have a high output charging system as well as CDI ignition. And last but not least, we're going to be installing EC Carburetor's pre-clearance crankshaft. This is a big deal because there's some clearance issues that you can have between cams and crankshaft, and you can buy this separately, and it's pre-clearance right out of the box, or EC has a full write-up on their website that we'll link in the video's description that shows you how to clearance your crankshaft yourself. Another big benefit to using the 223cc Wildcat is you're not going to have any clearance problems. If you use the EC rod that they've designed specifically for this engine, you're not going to have to grind the block like you would on a 224 Predator. If you run the 224 Predator, the rod can run into the block, leaving you to disassemble the entire block, grind it out, then fully clean out the block. You're not going to have that on the 223cc Wildcat. So let's get on the bench, let's get these parts installed, and let's get the engine on the Rokon. We did have to clearance the block a little bit for the cam we chose to go with because it has a larger than normal base circle. This is not going to be the case with most cams, but it is with this one. So we just grinded a little bit of material away and we got clearance now. For the DTV shredder charging coils, I had to cut off one of the standoffs for clearance. I also forgot to mention that we went ahead and ported out this head. It does have some small ports from factory, so we're going to gain a lot of horsepower and torque from opening up both the exhaust and the intake port. So we did that real quick and port matched the intake and everything. Now with everything installed, we can disassemble the Rokon and install this new Wildcat 223cc. One cool thing about this Rokon is all the body moldings. I'm hoping that with the new parts, everything will still go back in its factory place and look original. We're going to stick with the original Salisbury CVT and keep our fingers crossed that it holds up to triple the horsepower and triple the torque. I'll definitely be upgrading to a higher flow exhaust because this one is super small. So setting this Wildcat on with this curved intake manifold, we can't keep this on. Basically the carb is going to hit the shifter knob for the transmission. We thought this would be the issue with this style intake, but we didn't know for sure until we tried it. And we know for sure. So I'm going to break loose these intake bolts. I just had this hose ran up in the intake.
1 hour later.
Okay, so EC sent us a intake adapter thingy boy. And this is real nice because on this Rokon we wanted to use that 90-degree intake. Oh, dropped it. One like this. This is not the EC one. But the problem was it was going to set our carb right where the shifter is. And this is a transmission shifter. What this will do is I think it'll allow me to tuck the carburetor behind the original plastics, which would be huge because we still want to keep this bike utilitarian. Utilitarian. You never heard that word before?
No.
Get cultured, honey. Come on. But first you put these little Allens in. Then, what'd I do with that other one? Well, that's it, folks. That's all we have for you. You have these studs you put in, and that ain't the right size Allen. Dang it. What we'll have to do, because this is not technically meant for this carb, it's meant for a different one. We will screw in or drill these studs out just one step so they'll slide. They're actually coming up with, they're going to be possibly introducing these carbs with this pre-done so we can tuck that carb really close in there. They're real nice. So I just need to block this up and drill these out, slide it on, put the nuts on. Carb is done. We need to run a new throttle cable because this throttle cable had the old school regular non-governor or governor stock carburetor style. So we got to pull this out, do some wiring, and finish the exhaust. So the bike is coming along really well. So we got some pretty sick stuff that the panels, all the factory panels pop right back into place. So that's awesome. We might have to trim one around the exhaust, but other than that, everything fit really good. I went ahead and made the exhaust. I was able to use a factory threaded piece. I don't know, it's for some accessory, I'm not sure what, but was able to utilize it to mount the muffler up. I think it turned out freaking sweet. It's tucked in the frame. It doesn't interfere with anything. It's going to be ceramic coated or Cerakoted, and then we're also going to put a heat shield where the passenger's leg could touch it. I don't think he's ever going to ride a passenger, but we just want to make sure it's as good as it can be. So now we have a battery box to mount. I went ahead and TIG welded this box up. Just have a couple pieces of angle and flat stock, and we're going to tuck it under the engine. I'm going to try to bolt it down so it's all removable, and we got to put the main wiring harness on. So let's get to that. I went ahead and swapped out the dim factory headlight with an LED light bar to help us on night rides. Okay, so the Rokon's all finished up other than the brake system. We did order the calipers that bolt right in place, just so we didn't have to fabricate a bunch of stuff and it's factory as can be. So we have those coming. We're going to get this exhaust ceramic or Cerakoted, so that'll be safe. No heat will get bled off and, you know, potentially hurt anything, but I think it's good for now. I did hook up a key switch right here on the handlebars, and this is how you start it. So let's go for a ride. The baffle is still in the exhaust, so it's actually super quiet. It's pretty much as quiet as it was stock, but of course it flows a lot better. We only have front brakes, but the brake front is rear and rear is front because of it being a differential brake system. Now this is the first time I've ever rode this, so this is the initial reaction. Pop it in here. I think this is first gear. So that is first gear, and it's way quicker. You see? Okay, so next in, this should be second gear. Oh boy, this thing is way meaner. Of course it is, it's triple the horsepower. Alright, third gear now. Let's see what it'll do. Getting out the rough stuff. Oh yeah, this thing will freaking scoot now. Yeah, now we're properly like hauling on this thing. This to me is as fast as you would want this bike. And I do have the tires inflated all the way up to like 15 psi just because the front has a slow leak. We do on the next episode on this bike, we're going to be doing the brakes and upgrading the tires. The brakes are a lot better because I basically greased the pivot mechanism and just tension them up real good, so this actually is stopping the bike pretty good. But he does want to upgrade to actual standard brakes because if your chain ever broke,
you would have no brakes. Let's go to second. This is second gear just for the woods. We won't need first because it's so stout now. The thing, I mean, this is the way it should have been from the factory. Cannot stop this thing. Second gear. This is a pretty good incline. It wouldn't be no like real challenge for it, but I mean this will show us the real power. Ooh. This thing is crazy, but like this is the way the bike should be. Let's go third gear. It'll do two-wheel drive like burnouts. So before third gear was like such a lazy gear on this bike, but now you could stay in third gear always. One thing, the foot pegs are just off on this. They're super slick. They need some sort of grip. Let's see if it'll spin them. Holy! Sweet sassy molasses. It just spins like the front end's getting swirly. Oh, this is sick. Look at the dust cloud. Here we go. Let's spin all two tires. Look at that out. My spin mark. That's it. This thing is sick now. Like before it was cool, now it's just awesome. Holy, I haven't hooked this brake caliper or matching cylinder up, so I keep driving it like almost panic braking, because these you gotta really manhandle them. Oh, this thing's sick. That thing is awesome. It doesn't look like anything is hitting whatsoever. Our brake rotor, if you notice, is sliding in, because the only thing that keeps these rotors on is the actual the caliper. So we need to pull these off while we're waiting on the new calipers to come, or that one at least. And this thing is a freaking unit now.
So guys, the Rokon turned out awesome. Like I can't believe how, like I knew it would have a lot of power. Obviously we're going with triple the power with that 223cc. And I know people probably wanted us to dyno this engine. We're actually doing a full road to horsepower on this engine. So we'll be going over these exact parts. This is like a good I think they call this their GT2 kit, I think. So we'll be going through all that on the channel, dynoing it and comparing it to other engines in the same class. So we'll be getting to that. But this Rokon, actually, like when he brought this bike to me, the guy that does our powder coating and stuff, it's his bike. He wanted us to build it because he goes on rides with us and stuff. Really, Kurt's a really cool dude. So when he wanted this built engine, I rode the Rokon and I was like, I don't see why you'd want more power on this thing, because it's large. It actually handles extremely well in the stock format and this one. Like I thought being a two-wheel drive bike, it would be heavy, which it kind of is heavy, but actually it's not. I would say this bike weighs the same as one of our Trailmasters, honestly. But now it's just a proper unit, and that exhaust being so quiet, I don't even want to take the baffle out. And he said he likes it being quiet better than loud. And the thing, that carburetor, that PZ22 was tuned absolutely. I've never had a carb tuned so perfect out of the box, which that's one thing EC was saying for our like C level. They're trying to get it tuned as best as possible. Of course, they can't do that for everybody's area, but they're going to try to do it for our area as best as possible, because that's where they can tune. But massive shout out to EC Carburetors for sending out this kit. Can't wait to do the road to horsepower on it. We have the other engine right here that we're going to be doing the full build out. We got a comparison video comparing this to the Tilson 212E, so that's coming out real soon, so stay tuned for that. And we do have another video coming. We're just waiting on those calipers. We're going to put brand new tires on the bike, then we're going to go on a proper ride and let Lonnie ride it. He's never rode it in stock format or this built version, so I think he's going to like it quite a bit. So stay tuned for that, guys. Let us know what you think about this Wildcat 223 engine and the platform. I think EC did an awesome job, and there's a lot of stuff coming out, so I can't wait to show you guys. So make sure to check out the links in the video description. Help support the channel and keep content coming out like this. Thank you guys so much. We love you, and God bless.